Good morning, YouTube. It is Saturday morning, January 11th, and we are here at Adapt Fitness, Dallas, Texas. The remnants of a nice little icy snow day. Most people are still lazy and in bed, but we've been getting up and getting after it. Roads haven't been too bad. Again, I'm driving a Tesla Model 3, so while I'm low to the ground, not necessarily the most snow-equipped vehicle, but I'm getting out here, so no excuses. But we got a fun little workout plan, just a lot of upper body back, we've got just a bunch of upper back work, biceps. Should be a relatively quick one, maybe about an hour or so. Just trying to get a lot of blood flowing to the back. High carb day yesterday after our leg day. So feeling pretty good, feeling pretty fueled up. A lot of rice. Some of those meals are, 500 grams in weight of cooked rice, which is about 150 carbohydrates. Doing that for pretty much every meal. So it becomes, you're looking for a shovel, not a fork. But that's enough about that. Let's get a good little back workout in. Welcome back, YouTube. We are here Saturday morning, January 11th at Adapt Fitness in Dallas, Texas. And we are here getting a little back and bicep work in early before the rush. ICU roads the past couple days, but they've pretty much cleared out by now, so it hasn't been too bad. But yeah, we had a good high carb day, leg day yesterday. Legs felt really good, pretty strong, a lot of volume, 100 rep sets, sets to 100, cumulative sets as I call them, on the leg press. So that's where you just sit down and go until you get 100 reps at a set weight. So it took us about 6 sets, broken up over time. Not too bad. We'll just try to improve either by getting it faster in less sets, or we will improve the weight. So a lot of fun to be had there. But today we're gonna need a lot of back, a lot of biceps, and just get in, get out, and get on with the chilling part of our day. So yeah, so starting off with some wide grip pull downs. Again, I kind of conceptualize the pull down motion as a width builder as opposed to rows being more of a density builder. And really, when it comes to bodybuilding, you need both. And you can always use more of both, but in ratio to one another. So you don't want to be super, super thin, super wide. It looks kind of weird. But I guess that's a lot better than being super, super dense and not very wide. So if you need more width, focus more on pull downs. If you need more density, thickness in the upper back, especially the mid back, then more rows. So just kind of the way I conceptualize it. With these chest supported rows, really just trying to focus on keeping the elbows kind of on a low path into my rib cage and make sure we're getting just constant tension. So I'm pulling kind of aggressively, not really focused on like a super controlled concentric, but I'm controlling the eccentric into that full stretch and then driving all that back. The big thing to make sure whenever we're kind of pulling aggressively is that our path is controlled. So I'm pulling aggressively, but making sure that my elbows are essentially dragging my forearms across the ground in a parallel way, as opposed to I pull aggressively, it's really easy for me to start shrugging or leaning away from the machine. That's going to take away from the overall lat activation because you're going to shift more load into your traps, where you start kind of doing more of a shrugging initiation, but also shifting tension into your spinal erectors because you're leaning back away from the machine. So you might be getting your hands to the same place. It's a big difference doing my hands in the same place here like this with good posture, shoulders down, as opposed to my hands being in the same place and I'm here like this. That joint angle changes quite a bit. So you're not actually getting into that deep lat as much as you think you are. Last set here with the chest supported rows, we're going to use a performance pin on this set. So we'll start off with our base weight that we've been using, and then it'll drop off about 15, probably about 15%, give or take. Might be like 17 and a half. Again, math not my strongest suit, but we're going to get it. So the performance pin, just an automatic drop set, allows us to get a couple extra reps in at the end of our set. Kind of talked about this in the concept of effective reps. The concept of effective reps meaning that not every single rep you do in a set is leading towards growth or stimulus, hypertrophy, strength, etc. You have to use some of those rates. You have to use some of those reps as stepping stones to get to the effective reps, right? Like if you can do, say, 200 pounds for 10 reps, then the first, 6 of those repetitions are you just building up cumulative fatigue. But you couldn't just go and do 4 reps, at 200 and just all of a sudden be like, oh, those are our effective reps. You got to build up to the point where the muscle's under enough tension, enough stress, that's forcing it to adapt to the stimulus that you're providing it. So what we do with the performance pin is we start off maybe at like a say a 6, 7, 8 rep max weight. We do that, and then when we fatigue, when we fail at that set, we drop off a little bit and get an additional 6 reps at what would maybe be, in a perfect world, a 12 rep max. So that way we're getting more effective reps early on in the set, and the weight essentially is fatiguing as we fatigue. So you're, in theory, for your 1 rep, doing a 1 rep max. For 2 reps, you're doing a 2 rep max. That's the idea of effective or perfect repetitions as we tend to apply it here. Yeah, so supersetting here, some DC rows, really focusing on lower lat with that movement, and kind of again crunching down, pulling into more of a clenched position, and then straight arm pull downs, kind of simulating like a pullover. We're really trying to get the arms up above head and then initiate from that lengthened position as much as possible. Really just isolate the lats for both of these movements. Yeah, that low pull down at the bottom when you're crunched over and you're allowing those elbows to just drive down. It's kind of that bottom portion of a pullover machine where you're driving that elbow down that last little bit, but all we're doing is we're turning that angle. So you're having to get that little bit of axis rotation of the shoulder just a little earlier than if I were to just do like a normal row. And that might be, just from a anecdotal, N equals 1, mind muscle connection standpoint, that might be what's driving more tension, more stimulus, more sensation into that lower lat. Just kind of conceptualizing that with you now. We're supersetting though. Lats are pretty toast. We did our wide grip kind of pull downs, chest supported rows, covering all of our bases for our wide and our vertical horizontal planes. DC rows for the lower lats, and then isolating with these straight arm pull downs to get more just lat without other things getting in the way, interfering. So now we'll move on, get some biceps, some rear delts. And that'll be it. Whew. Yeah, so biceps, straightforward, probably going heavier than most people do conventionally. It's not really about getting a pump from just a lot of reps. It's about still maintaining high intensity. So still trying to kind of fail in that 8 to 12 rep range, build some good, dense, myofibril hypertrophy, not just sarcoplasmic, meaning we're not just swelling the muscle with a bunch of, fluid. We're getting some actual fibril density. And it's hard to avoid. You're gonna get both. I've just found that my muscle stays a lot longer if I focus on the myofibril density and more of like the hybrid strength hypertrophy phase, as opposed to if I'm, pumping it full of, 20 rep sets. I feel like I get a lot of pump, a lot of blood flow into the muscle, but that muscle tends to be the first to go whenever we start reducing calories or reducing carbs. Ooh. So now just hitting some hammer curls. Again, just working on different rotations of the wrist. Even if a muscle group is, trained better in a certain range of motion, a certain rotation, a certain grip position, a certain foot width, all that stuff, you need to do the other one too, every once in a while, at least just as maintenance to prevent injuries. I see it all the time with clients who come in and they always do the same variation of a certain exercise. Like a bicep curl, for example, they'll always go supinated, bicep curls, always keeping the wrists rotated, open soup, right? Like you're drinking soup from your hands. And then they're like, my elbows hurt. I'm like, because you never do any other variation of elbow flexion, elbow extension. So one thing to think about, just overuse. If if you're strengthening one grip rotation, you know, then oftentimes the muscles in your forearms might get a little tight in one area and a little loose in another. And that creates all this imbalance. So you maybe have really, really tight like pronators, really loose, really like underdeveloped supinators. And that's gonna cause, you know, the elbow tension, the tennis elbow, the golfer's elbow, those things, or it might manifest more in the wrist where you have a lot of like wrist discomfort whenever you're trying to do anything supinated from that point on. Like a lot of people I know can't do underhanded rows, for example, without them complaining about their wrists hurting. And it's because they're just so used to always going neutral or pronated. So again, just the answer isn't always some complex injury. It might just be that you're not training that rotation or that specific technique, and you're overtraining the opposite. So coming back here for our rear delt row variation. And so that's going to be kind of a A-frame angle, as I call it. The elbows are flying kind of slightly out, but not here, right? I think a lot of times what we think about is we think the wider my elbows go, the more shoulder activation I'm going to get. But really the path of the rear delt is more of a downward kind of outward angle like this. So think like cable flies. It's not really here. It's really easy for the rhomboids to take over that position. But if we go down, it's really easy to isolate. And even you can feel if you just go back there and like really try to force those arms back, you'll feel that rear delt tighten up a lot more, contract a lot more. So I'm gonna just try and kind of maintain that frame, maintain that angle the entire time as we're doing rows here, just to kind of finish off the rear delts. And you'll see the range of motion will likely change quite a bit to try and just isolate the rear delts and not let the lats and other things take over. I find this just a very effective way, for me at least from mind muscle standpoint, but also to load the rear delts a little bit heavier than you can with like, you know, isolation exercises like a rear delt fly or a cable delt fly. Part of that, right, is because the lever of your arm is so much shorter. So really just focusing on the movement from my shoulder to my elbow, not, you know, holding on to a weight where that fulcrum is now so long, that lever is so long, that all that tension being applied is having to travel through so much more range of motion. So sometimes that's where like getting on a pec fly or any kind of like machine with pads and just driving through the elbows and not focusing on, you know, using your hands or using your wrists to fly the weight out. Sometimes I find that that helps people in terms of that mind muscle connection, feel more stimulus and be able to go a little bit heavier at the same time when they're trying to activate their and stimulate their rear delts. Okay, so that is a wrap for today. Back, biceps, pretty quick, about an hour. But we got plenty of good stimulus in the lats, really burnt those out. Excuse me. And yeah, full leg day yesterday, high carbs on leg days. So ranging from about 900, give or take, on those carb days. Nothing to sneeze at, a lot of rice to get down, because we're not really doing it with a, carb as a carb mentality. We want to try and eat as many clean, quote unquote, simple, and I don't mean simple versus complex, but just simple, basic rice, potatoes, oatmeal, cleaner foods that are not going to fuck up my digestion. That's really the main thing. It's not really about that carb converting to sugar faster or slower, or glycemic index or things like that. It's just things that my body tolerates well. So, a little pump check. Most of this coming from all the rice yesterday, all the carbs yesterday. Trying to maintain that leanness, create all that width. Feeling really good. Yeah. Check-in this week with Justin went really well. He keeps saying we got more room to push, so we are in, entering rebound week number 5. I think he usually says on average rebounds are 4 to 6 weeks before we enter like a true off season. So not really sure quite what that means just yet, but we will find out soon enough. But if he says let's keep pushing, we're going to keep pushing. And yeah, he's the expert. So there's a reason why I pay him to get me right, because there's no one I trust more in getting people huge without getting fat than Justin Harris. So if that's your goal, definitely check out Troponin Nutrition on Instagram, YouTube, on the interwebs, on the Google machine. Troponin Nutrition, Justin Harris, been in the game a long time and is great at building mass monsters. So that's what we're trying to do. We are in the 230 range as of this morning with all those carbs, no surprise. And the goal is before the Arnold, before February 27th, we want to be above 240. So another 10 plus pounds to push, as lean as possible as we can with that. And yeah, we'll see if we can even creep even closer to like 250 or so, because in my head, I don't know if I'm just kind of sitting on a number, but I'd like to be like 255, 260, see what that looks like before we start cutting down, carving away, and getting into our quote-unquote final form. So we'll see. But the goal, of course, is gain as much muscle as you can without getting fat. So we get closer to that like 11, 12% body fat range. That's when we got to reel it back in. Right now we're holding a little bit of water from all the carbs yesterday, but we'll flush all that out today and tomorrow, and then check in next Wednesday. So stay tuned. We got a push day tomorrow, legs again on Monday, pull again on Tuesday, and right now we're only resting on Thursdays. So a lot of good stuff coming your way content-wise. But yeah, enjoy the rebound, enjoy the show, and let's go. Bo Alexander, Adapt Fitness, Dallas, Texas, off-season rebound phase. Bye.